Da, 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 da. Wait a second. Wait, this is the first episode of 2026.
That's right.
Not Old Lang Syne, the last episode of 2025.
My goodness. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you're having a great New Year.
Welcome.
This is it. It's 2026. There's a lot going on.
Bam, bam. Let's go, right?
Yeah, I think when there's always that moment of pause around the holidays, and now people start getting back into work. You and I are back and doing our work, doing our things.
Yep.
You've been down there in the Keys, sweating and working hard and suffering while it's 20 degrees up here in Virginia. I don't want to hear anything about that.
Yeah, and John, I was looking at the milestones of our HR Stories podcast, hrstoriespodcast.com, and 5 years. 5 years. I don't know. I can't remember what the statistics were. Thousands and thousands of downloads, 8,000, 10,000 downloads. And that's just, I think, since we started this. So this is really, really exciting. We're in that 5-ish year time frame.
Yeah.
And I know the first couple of years we only did a couple of these, but still, that's a great partnership. And folks, if you're joining us for the first time, you're meeting me, Chuck, Samikian, SPHR, Sherm SCP. But yes, I'm an HR. I'm the HR director here of the group, and providing the color commentary and levity and brevity. Well, okay, let's take away brevity. Is John Thalheimer, Master of Science in Leadership and all things leadership guru-wise. And we're the HR Stories podcast.
Hey.
Your first time here.
Hey, I didn't tell you this. I'm doing a presentation for NOVA, which is the North Virginia SHRM, end of the month. In fact, the same day, I think it's the same day we're going to do our webinar for the HR Professional Magazine, which is January 28th, 29th, somewhere in there. We'll get those dates out to everyone to make sure they have them.
Yeah, folks, if you know what we're talking about, the HR Professionals Magazine, we've partnered with them. We've written a few articles for HR Professionals Magazine, and we are hosting a webinar for any HR Professional Magazine subscribers and any of our listeners. If you're listening to this, look in the show notes below, and you'll see how to register for that HR Professionals Magazine webinar on
the 29th.
On the 29th, and what are we talking about, John?
It's going to be 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The NOVA one is going to be in the morning. I think 11 a.m. is when I'm doing that. And that's going to be on the strategic side of HR, which, putting my two loves together there, Chuck, because I love doing my strategic planning.
You are strategic.
And I got some more research I've been doing. I'm so excited about that. It's going to be good. We're off, right? This is it. We're running. We got to go. We got to get going.
Yeah, it feels good to be back. It really does, because January is when HR leaders, sit down, open those notebooks. We're out there. We're trying to figure out whether this year is going to be manageable. What do we need to work on right away to kick the year off? Or is it going to be one of those years where every week kind of brings that weight? Does this apply to us moment?
Yeah, and there's a lot of early signals that a lot of people, this is going to be the flood of employment laws updates, much which don't clearly tell you actually what matters versus what's just noise, right? We're hearing all this and trying to get some of that value versus the noise is what I think we're here for today.
Yeah, and January's not starting quiet. Right off the bat, we got minimum wage increases hitting 19 states as of January 1st. We got pay transparency expectations and laws expanding, and AI in hiring rules that don't care whether you meant to use AI. Yeah. So in this first episode, we're going to stay a little grounded. what is already in effect for 2026, where employers are actively getting tripped up, and what you should tighten up right now, not hypothetically and not someday, but right now.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we will do is we're going to do a part 2 of this, right? And so we're going to be talking about part 1 is like what's happening today. Part 2 is more about what do we project for 2026. So definitely tune back in, right? And so tune back in after you listen to this episode, jump into part 2. It'll come out a week from whenever this one comes out. So a week from whenever you're hearing this, it'll be out there as well. And 2026 feels different. And I think it's important to name why, right? This feels unsettling because it's not just you listeners and it's not just you, Chuck. We're in a moment when federal agencies are quiet or constrained, why states are moving aggressively, which creates uncertainty, right? And so we're trying to figure there's just this lot of uncertainty out there.
Yeah, a lot of that uncertainty rather than clarity. So, look, HR folks were used to adapting to change, and we're not great at operating in silence. And because silence forces judgment, we have to make these judgment calls instead of, okay, this is compliance. And judgment gets a little messy fast when you're managing people across multiple states, cities, and job sites.
Exactly. And that's the theme you're going to hear throughout this episode. 2026 is going to be a judgment year. And how do we make the best decisions, I think is going to be really important.
Yeah, let's start with our first topic, independent contractors. The DOL has been quiet, others are not. And this is where we're seeing some of the biggest misunderstanding.
Yeah, and at the federal level, the Department of Labor's 2024 independent contractor rule technically remains in effect, but enforcement from the Department of Labor has been paused, and investigations have been instructed to rely on the older economic reality test, which came out during the first Trump administration. Now, here's something that I want to say, and I'll say it again in part 2, Chuck.
Say it again.
But when we wrote this material, the Department of Labor did not have a full quorum at the commissioner level. As of yesterday, right, the day before we recorded this, they now have that quorum. They have appointed 2 individuals, both strong leaning to the Republican side, Republican administration. Yep. Typically Republican commissioners. So we do expect some of these things to be clarified, some of this information to change. So paying attention is going to be important. But I do think we still need to talk about independent contractors.
Yeah, and I will tell you, in my world, we've gotten away from a lot of independent contractors. I have figured out a way to hire someone on payroll, but as a contractor. It's actually a setting in ADP. So I'm paying them through ADP. I'm paying them as contractors, okay? But we're hiring them.
Are they employees then?
So then, yeah, technically they are employees.
Okay.
But I'm paying them at an equivalent of what, we're negotiating those rates, but I'm not paying independent contractors for jobs like, hey, we need someone to work on this project for 3, 4, 5 months, or we need someone to do this job for 5 or 6 months while we look for a full-time person for that. So I've kind of been rather safe than sorry, and I've been hiring them as employees, but as like I don't know, it's called contractor paid through payroll.
They're temp employees, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
So that we cover their general liability, their workers' comp, and that's kind of where we've been going. But
and I think, I think that's really good, right? Because I think that what you're doing is, and this is what HR directors have to do, and business owners, small business owners will say as well, you have to make a risk assessment. You have to decide, if I hire this person as an independent contractor and they're not, what is the risk to my business? And Chuck said, look, that risk is too high. we're going to bring them on as temporary employees. Now, that employee may want to be an independent contractor because they don't want to have taxes taken out. They don't want all that stuff taken out, right? And so, but it's safer and better for your company in there. And so I think what's happening is right now the DOL is being really, Department of Labor folks, is being very quiet, right?
Yeah.
But IRS still fully enforcing its common law test. The states each have their own classification standards, many of which are stricter than federal laws.
Yeah, states like California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, right? They're using versions of that ABC test, which essentially starts from the assumption that someone is an employee unless you could prove all three elements of independence. So, hey, you're an employee, prove me wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to kind of think about. And we always teach this. In fact, it shows up in our Ultimate Guide to HR, Checklist Edition, our book. We have in there all three tests because we have the Department of Labor test, we have the IRS test, and the state test in there. There's the book. Chuck's showing it on YouTube there. And so why we have that is because we have always believed that you have to look at all three tests to make sure that you have a decision about that. So, so making sure you do that. So here's what we want listeners to think about. Instead of asking, what is the Department of Labor doing right now? Ask, if this person filed a claim tomorrow saying they should be an employee, which agency would review it and what tests would then they apply?
Yeah. So
right?
this quarter, folks, make a list. Here's our action item, John. Make a list of every 1099 relationship. Walk through 3 questions. Who controls the schedule? Who controls the tools? And whether the work is part of your core business. And then I would add a 4th. If this person disappeared tomorrow, would your operation stop, or would that, department would that happen? And if the answer is yes, you're probably not dealing with an independent relationship. So you need to fix it now while you still control the timing and the message.
Yeah, and we always say in our training, Chuck, that the more control you have over that individual, the more likely they're their employee.
Yeah.
Right. And so kind of looking at that there. All right. So Chuck, section number 2, I think.
Number 2.
Minimum wage. And I love what we put in here as our headline. It's a geographic problem. Right. Minimum wage is another area where good employers can get caught off guard, not because they're trying to pay unfairly, but because the rules are no longer uniform.
Exactly. See, it's not just like in 2026, hey, minimum wage went up. It's where it went up, when, and what that does to the whole pay ladder. So as of January 1st, 19 states increased minimum wage. For example, California is now at $16.90, Washington at $17.13, Connecticut at $16.94. But in California, there's a higher wage if you're a fast food worker.
Yeah, $20 if you're a fast food worker. Yeah,
and of course,
and it's even higher in San Francisco.
Yeah, and then of course here in Florida, we're up to $14. We'll be at $15 this fall of 2026. And for that next step, right now, the whole big thing was fight for 15, and as soon as they got that, now it's the fight for 20. Like, really? Come on. I mean, this is Florida.
Yeah, that's Florida. Well, there you go. In my state of Virginia, I think it's $13.50, and it's supposed to go up to 15. I'm not sure when, but there's talk that the legislators are going to knock that down. They're not going to allow that to happen. We'll see what that happens now that we have a Democratic governor and House of Rep. Like, everything's straight Democratic, so it'll probably go up. And so I think it's fascinating. But I think one of the things that I see, this is where I get on my small business owner thing, because it's not just about, we want to move minimum wage up, right? Because when you move minimum wage up, that just puts the upper pressure. You said it earlier on the pay ladder, right? All of a sudden now, if I was making $10 an hour and I'm making 15, that guy that's making 15's like, well, wait a minute. I don't think that's fair, right? And they put on pressure up to $20, the guy that was making 20 or the girl that was making 20, right? And so it just goes on and on. So many states still, right? Many states still either have the $7.25 federal, right? Or don't have any minimum wage at all.
Yeah.
So you're going to follow the federal. In most cases, will follow that. Not all cases, but most cases you'll follow that. So it's not that simple.
No, it's not that simple. And even remote work, that's where it even gets more dangerous because wage obligations follow where the work is performed, not where the payroll system lives. Look, we just hired someone that works in Washington, D.C. Now, she was hired at a professional level, but I got to think to myself, are there any other laws in Washington, D.C., PTO laws, sick days, things like that we have to follow? So even if you're fully compliant, the hidden problem is that wage compression, like I said, you bump the floor, it leads your long tenured people. They wonder what happened. So any other actions, John, here?
Yeah, so here's our action for you listeners out there and for you, Chuck. One of the most practical things you can do this year is create a simple wage map of where your employees work. Including remote and hybrid roles, and then confirm that your pay rates meet state and local requirements as well.
All right, so let's take a look at paid leave. More states, more layers. That's another, paid leave. It's another area where people underestimate exposure. And like I had just talked about with the one person we hired, we're in Florida. She's working in Washington, D.C. Maybe it's Virginia. But she lives up in that area. And because the rules are changing fast, by 2026, several states will have active paid family and medical leave. That's amazing. And Minnesota's program began just a few days ago here in January 2026. Delaware's program will launch in 2026. If you live in Maine, folks, it's moving its benefits phase. It's moving into the benefit phase in 2026. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, in 2026, paid and family medical leave exists in states like California, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Minnesota, with Delaware and Maine bringing in programs online.
And that's also separate from a lot of paid sick leave laws, which exist in many of those states and sometimes at the city level as well.
Yeah, and so where we see employers struggling with not with generosity, but with alignment, right? And so policies one thing, payroll systems do another, managers explain it a third way. It just gets very like, what am I doing as an employee?
Yeah. So if you have employees in any of those states, sit down with your payroll department and your benefits and answer one question clearly. What state provided, or what is state provided? What is employer provided, and how do they interact? Then write one. Then write one paragraph, a one paragraph manager script. So your leaders aren't explaining it in three different ways. Elevator speech, shall we say, because inconsistency and inconsistent explanations are where that trust breaks down.
Yeah, what I would do is bring all your managers in, give them that paperwork, but then you explain it to them how you want them to explain it to the employees. Make sure they understand it before they leave the room. Because it's complicated, but we have to have clear communication across the organization. What about, Chuck, AI in hiring?
Yeah, it's something.
You already use it.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about AI in hiring. Because this is no longer theoretical. We are now using it.
Yeah, I see a lot of jobs being posted on LinkedIn, on Indeed. Just kind of keep an eye on what's happening out there. And I just wonder if AI is, sometimes I see on LinkedIn when you see, 400 people have applied. I'm thinking there's no way one person can look through 400
Yeah.
resumes and applications. But New York City law, let's talk about New York City's
Okay.
local law, which could be coming out there. It could be the what's the word, the cornerstone for other laws throughout the country. It's been enforceable since 2023 for automated employment decision tools, bias audits, candidate notices, and it's pushing employers to treat screening tech like part of this decision, not the only decision, and not just software. It can be part of the decision, but it
Yeah,
can't be
and
the full decision.
California's rules are coming into effect, I think, in 2026, but I may be wrong. But they're coming along, right? So this New York City is just the first thing. We're going to have a lot more of this, and what it's saying is, and here's what we hear from employers in HR, right? We hear, oh, well, the common refrain is, we didn't build this tool, we didn't realize it counted as AI, and so a lot of the times we're reaching out to these software companies that are producing stuff, and we're not even thinking about AI.
Yeah, and if a tool screens, ranks, recommends, or filters candidates for you, it's in the decision change. And here's the practical reality: even if the law doesn't require a bias audit or your law where you live today, candidates increasingly expect transparency, and regulators are paying attention to these claims and the vendor claims that say, okay, this is what the tool does versus what it actually does.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I'm going to go kind of a little off thing, but the EEOC has over the years been very critical of using personality tests in the hiring process because of the inherent bias in those tests. Right. And there's some that can be used, some that can't. You just need to talk to your vendor. And I think this is the same thing when we're thinking about the AI process. What does that play out? How does that look? How are we using it? Are we screening 400 applicants to go, okay, give me the top 10? And again, we've been doing that in a smaller manner with algorithms. We're like, okay, these are the keywords I want to see on the resume. If it's not on there, I'm going to throw them out, which again, bothers me because I think we're missing out great applicants, but I get it. I can't do 400 people. I got to do something. And so we, as HR, small business owners, professionals, here's what we need to do. You need to inventory every one of your hiring and screening tools you use and ask the vendors directly whether AI or automated decision making is involved. And it is, take a note, make sure you understand that, because at some point you may need to be doing bias audits and doing all that stuff.
Yeah. And it's not just about hiring, it's also about terminations. There was that law they're trying to pass in California, no more robo bosses law, where they're trying to turn over, hey, like all of a sudden, I don't want to be the bad guy. Let's feed it all into AI and let's have AI decide. Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's great. I can see that. And again, here's our qualifications and da 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 da. There was a story. What was that story about? Somebody was, I don't forget where it was, but somebody was terminated. Oh, it was. Now they got in trouble because they were lived in Netherlands. I think it was the Netherlands or Holland. And they have a very different culture in the Hollands. When you're done work at 5, you're done work. And their American boss was giving them a hassle because they turned off their Slack at 5:01.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's what happens when you hire that person. All right.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
All right.
Pay transparency, Chuck.
Yeah. So our final topic for this episode is going to be pay transparency laws are now active in states like Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, New York, Washington, with more jurisdictions joining every year. So do you want to kind of talk about what a pay transparency is when you're posting?
That's probably a good point. So pay transparency, for those that don't know, and there's a lot of states and cities that do this. But what they're asking us to do, or they're telling us to do in most cases, is that when we post a job, we need to tell the job candidates this is the salary range and this is the benefits that you would get with that job. And so it really makes you be aware of your schedules, how you're looking at your pay, because what they don't want you to do, what they're trying to eliminate is unequal pay practices.
Yeah.
Right. We're paying this person because they're young. We're only going to pay them this much. Oh, this person's older. I guess we're going to have to pay them more. Right. And so kind of doing that, or this person's male or female, trying to eliminate all of that. And so the other thing, so some states don't go, oh, you need to do it in the job posting. Some say, well, you need to do it in the interview. You need to tell them very clearly what the job is, that kind of stuff. Right. And so paying attention to what your state says is critical. And I get why companies don't want to post it, because if I post a job for accounting 1 and I post it between $27,000, well, let's say $35,000 and $45,000, and I have somebody that's being an accountant 1 in the company, and they're at the low end of that, they could be like, oh, they're going to be making more money than me? That's not fair.
So
right?
It's transparent. Everyone kind of, which is a little odd, I think, but I'm starting to get, I think we're all, the old school people are always like, we got to protect, but I'm getting used to it. I see it out there more and more. And like you were going to say, like you said, posting that salary range is more of a straightforward thing now.
I think when you get into it, right? And so a lot of the companies, and I think this is bigger companies, will have all that information available to the employees. Like, this is the range for this employee. This is, not for the employee. This is the range for that role, right? And so they see all the bands and the levels, and they kind of do that. I think it's the smaller to middle-sized companies that can be like, well, I don't want to share that information because I'm paying that person $20,000 more than I'm paying that person. But as we all know, employees have a right to discuss their salaries, and that's going to happen.
Yeah. So, folks, here's the action item. Before posting ranges, make sure you can explain how they were set, that your managers are prepared to discuss them calmly, right? Calmly, and that you've checked for obvious internal equity problems, like John mentioned. And, the hardest part isn't the posting. It's the Monday morning conversation when your best employees say, so why am I not at the top of the range?
Boom, boom.
So let's close it up, John.
All right. So that's part 1, right? This was really about grounding yourself in the reality of what is happening now in January. This is one of those episodes, Chuck, that we produce, and probably by the end of February we'll be out of date. But we'll keep you up to date. That's our goal, always to keep you up to date with what's happening, but just kind of being there, understanding what's already happening and taking steps to prevent surprises later.
Yeah. And in the next episode, we'll shift from what's real today to what's unsettled. We're going to talk a little bit about NLRB developments, federal uncertainty, and how to steady without overreacting. There is one little thing that I do want to throw out there. I saw today, which is really interesting, John, is that there is an unsexy payroll landmine that's going to hit many employers this year, and that is a 27 paycheck year. If you pay every other week, you think, oh yeah, we just need to budget for 26 payroll periods. But the way things are lining up this year, you may be on the hook for a 27 week, one extra payroll. So check it out, folks. You don't want to be caught unawares. And you heard that here on the HR Stories podcast, where there's a lesson in every story. Make sure you like, comment, follow, go to Ultimate Guide to HR.com, Ultimate Guide to HR, or go to Amazon.com, search the Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition, find our book. John, anything else to send us into the sunset with?
I think that you should stop come back, listen to part 2, because we're going to have some really important lessons to learn in that one as well.
Yep. We'll see you next week for part 2, folks.